Hello and welcome to Net That Haul. We're back after what feels like a long break. FPLLens is with me for the first time in 2024. I am, of course, FPL Nima. We're going to co-host you for the Gameweek 22 Matchup show. It's an exciting one. Obviously, there's some FA Cup fixtures to go ahead, so we'll preface anything we say today right at the beginning. And thank you everyone who's tuned in live, and apologies for the delayed start. But it's good to be here Friday. Good to see you, Gabe. How are you feeling? Are you going to wildcard this week? That was my biggest question for you and for the viewers, I guess, to find out, because I know you were thinking about it. I don't know if you've popped it already or...
Oh, I popped it. It's popped. I'm all in on the wild card. It's good to be back. I am a little rusty. It's been, I can't believe it's my first show of 2024. It's good to get back into it. There's so much up in the air with the wild card, right? There's like, well, if this happens, then I go in this direction, and if this happens, I go in that direction. And I think we're going to learn a lot today. Obviously all eyes on City assets and Kevin De Bruyne. I don't think Holland he won't even be in the squad, I think, based on recent reports.
For tonight,
I'm not sure.
It doesn't sound like it. Yeah, I don't think he'll be in there tonight. It's a question whether he's even fit for time to make it to the bench, I guess, against Burnley themselves. Hence De Bruyne being on the cover of the thumbnail for anyone listening on podcast, because 1 million transfers in this week. It feels like he's the topic of the game week, because 1 million bought him last week before he'd even got any minutes. Now he's got another million signings, 5 days to go, at least till deadline nearly. The question is, for everyone, I think, tell us in the chat, are you buying De Bruyne or do you already have him? Because the next most transferred in player is only on like 200,000. So it's a big difference between KDB and everyone else.
Yeah, and that was like a part of the reason why I hit my wild card. I had some defensive needs and just injuries across the defense, and I had to make defensive transfers. But at the same time, there are like the way the game is going, the attacking players were kind of in demand, with Jota popping and KDB coming back, and City about to meet Burnley, right? So there's a lot of upside in their assets, and we're getting a lot of information. This is a week where we got a lot of information last week, and we're getting even more information this week. So I thought that's kind of like accumulation of information presented a nice little opportunity to kind of go with a certain strategy, hit the wild card now, and maybe get an advantage on the field, whatever the field is, because as you know, I haven't checked my rank, but you always want to get an advantage against the field.
It's crazy. We've gone past game week 19, so I think we're at the stage where you might not check it for the whole season. I wonder if that's kind of the way forward, and then reassess and look back, because what will be fascinating is to see decisions you made certain game weeks, and later afterwards to see whether it was like a green or red arrow that week and what kind of impact it had. And I reckon you'll notice your chip usage, and you'll see that, like, maybe being there and not looking at your rank for the whole season so far, it's taken away one other layer of influence on your decision making. So you're trying to just make the decisions for the sake of the game now, and not necessarily for what rank you are or how it's going. So it'll be interesting to see what you learn from it, and if you then redo it a second year. But yeah, let us know in the chat what you guys think about trying to go a whole season not looking at your OR. It's a crazy one. Yeah, I didn't think you were going to do it for 10 game weeks, right? I think that's the first thing to tell everyone, especially the podcast listeners. Like, and it just kind of continued because I suppose you felt great not needing to check. And that's probably a good time to go into philosophy as well, right? Because it's that philosophy of the way you're playing is probably why there's a Net That whole philosophy of the week every week for the matchup show.
I think I finally listened to my own philosophy and started playing for process. But I just like the initial target was 10 game weeks, and then every game week when I'd ask myself, like, well, is this a game week to start checking? And I couldn't think of a good reason. I was like, well, why? Because I asked myself, why am I checking? And I could never really answer that. Like, other than, well, ego satisfaction, because I know I scored some decent points, so I want to see something green. That's not a good reason for me. So I still can't come up with a good reason to check.
I like it.
If you want to challenge and you want to throw reasons out there, throw them in the chat. I'm happy to read them. But
let us know the reasons. We'll put them up on the screen. Yeah, we'll put them on the screen as well. But see if you can convince Gabe that there are good reasons to check and why he should check. at this stage going into Gameweek 22, not having checked before now. Yeah, I think one thing I will agree with is, for me, I've realized something that helps me is not looking at the live game week rank till the game week is over. I try to detach from that more now, and even price changes, I try to detach from them. But in these kind of moments, I've lost 0.4 million on KDB over the weeks, and I'm just waiting for information. I'm a bit like, well, I just want to play when I make my decision on Tuesday. I want to hear like Pep's press conference. Like, if there's any chance Haaland starts, my primary goal is Haaland first, bring in and captain. So for me to make that move, I wouldn't be getting KDB this week. But if Haaland looks out, maybe I'll change my mind, because I do want a piece of that Burnley match, as you're saying. So I think that's where I'm see what the matchup shows and whether it supports the idea of being maybe more aggressive. And I might even be willing to take a -4 to get both KDB and Haaland. At the moment, I've got Alvarez and Foden. So in that case, I would have to sell Alvarez. So I've got to think about it. The question for me is do I keep Alvarez, or do I get KDB by getting rid of him? That's something I need to think about long term leading into the double game week. But why don't we go to the philosophy, and then we can go straight into the matchup. So 6 minutes 14 to timestamp it for anyone in the podcast. So I'll let you tell us about Albert Camus and the philosophy of the game week for 22.
So it's Albert Camus.
Camus. Yeah, I had no idea
Camus,
who it was.
Yep. Yeah. He is a French philosopher, existentialist, and he said, "The absurd is the essential concept and the first truth." And what the way I relate this to FPL is the once we accept the fact that what we're doing, what we're engaged in with the game of FPL is completely ridiculous and utterly absurd. Then we're totally free to kind of have fun with it and make whatever kind of decisions we want to make, and kind of go with gut feel, or play the way we want to play our own game, right? If we accept that as the first truth, then we have nothing to lose. So each and every game week, like, play the game your own way as if you have nothing to lose. And I think a good way to do that is by accepting the first truth, that the absurd is the essential concept.
Yeah, no, I think one thing I will say is it's a breath of fresh air to be back with you and having the philosophy. I know we didn't have it in the last show, so let us know as well in the chat what you think. Any other segments you'd like to see? I think we'd like to add some segments this year, so some fun little 5-10 minute segments throughout the show. Just, FPL itself can be quite draining, so it's nice to have a bit of fun along the way while you're here. So yeah, let's keep going, I think. And this week, we're not going to do a summary. We're going to do that at the end. So we'll timestamp that for the podcast as well. And we're going to go just straight into the first matchup, right? The Tuesday night game. And we're going to kind of rapidly get through. We're starring your questions as we go, guys. So we will put them up at the end as well. So there will be a timestamp Q&A. If you can't make the whole episode, that's all good. But yeah, Forest versus Arsenal, the first game of the game week. So the NetxG for Arsenal is 1.56. For Nottingham Forest, 1.1. Looking like maybe a 2-1 Arsenal, no clean sheet here is what the data would tell me. But yeah, anything from a more tactical and I guess from a, eye test point of view, as opposed to just the NetxG, it would be good to hear what you think before. Because I feel like I don't want to talk about this game, because I'd love to hear what you think without giving you any ideas of what my take is yet. I'm interested to know a more balanced take from someone.
I'll bring the outside perspective, and then you can add to it with the inside perspective. How about that?
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds great.
All right, I won't spend too much time on Forest because people aren't really seriously considering those assets. If you're interested in them, they're kind of like what's going on with them in from an attacking perspective. Check out the thread. I'll post it probably late Sunday or early Monday. But let's get straight to Arsenal and kind of like what's going on with Arsenal. And I had a good talk with Teacher about them. One thing Teacher recognized is by putting Havertz in that left central midfield role, he can send these little curling balls that like curl towards the outside of the box, and having Trossard or Martinelli run onto those balls has kind of like proved quite effective. And Arteta gave them license to do that. As predicted in the thread for last week, Martinelli was the top pick. I didn't know he wouldn't start, but he still got his due. So here against Forest, I don't know. I actually I think it flips. I think it flips back. And I favor Saka in this one because Danilo likes to push forward for Forest, and I don't think he'll be given license to go forward too much. But I think that presents an opportunity. We see in the heat map in the red box in the second heat map from left to right. That's Forest chances conceded in the past 6 home games. And it's right in that area where Saka's cutting inside, where Odegaard is looked to as a target to combine with Saka. Maybe Ben White gets around the outside or something like that. But I see a lot of damage being done from kind of the area of Saka and Odegaard, more so than the weak side in this one. And but again, like the other thing is Arsenal home versus Arsenal away. You see the stats there. NetxG 1.56 for Arsenal away to Forest. If this game were home, that NetxG would jump to 2.33. It's insane how different your stats are home from and away. So I think the upside is somewhat limited. I think about 2 goals for Arsenal is correct. The other thing that I didn't put on the slide here, but I was also thinking about is it could be another Gabriel game. It wouldn't surprise me if Arsenal do get a clean sheet and Forest have struggled against like corners and stuff like that. So Gabriel could be a threat once again. I see like 2-1, maybe 3-1 Arsenal, or sorry,
I'm
2-0,
starting. Yeah,
2-0,
I'm
maybe
starting
3-1.
Gabriel. Yeah, no, I'm definitely starting
Yeah.
Gabriel. He had a bit of a knock apparently, but I think they just took him off because we were winning by a margin at that point. And keep a lookout. I have a sub, so I don't mind. I think we've got a question here, which we might as well answer while we're here, which is from K7. Do we start Arsenal double defense? I think the question is depends who else your defenders are. So for me, like I'm not really going to condone starting double defense for most teams, but Gabriel, if there's a chance that this could be another headed matchup for him as well, then yeah, I would probably definitely be starting him at least. And then depends if your second pick is a goalkeeper like a Raya or if it's actually another defender. Because if it's an outfield player, I would prefer to play the other player. Like for me, I've got Estupinian and Poro partnered with Gabriel this week, for example. So I would maybe bench the second Arsenal defender that isn't Gabriel, or if it's a goalkeeper, maybe play both. But yeah, I wouldn't want to use the outfield slot. So that's my answer to that question. So for me, I think I agree with you, Gabe. I think the data is tighter than what I expect. I foresee like a big, important, another statement needed to carry on building on the statement against Palace and to just keep going since the break and coming back. So yeah, we're not in the cup this weekend, so I hope they feel disappointed about that and extra amped up to go for it again on Tuesday when they realized that everyone else in the Prem was playing on the weekend apart from them. So yeah, it's been a bit of a damp squib of a month this January, like 2 games for Arsenal, I think, like barely played, right? So I can't wait for February and for Champions League to return and for football to get very exciting with double game weeks and blank game weeks. So I'm excited for the episodes ahead where we get to the chip strategy because that's my favorite part of FPL every season. So 100% I can't wait. But for me, I guess just the Saka question. So I have Saka. I'm assuming on Wildcard you would definitely sell him, right? But obviously I'm not wildcarding. So for me, it's like I'll do another move for now. But he could be KDB, for instance. Like if someone wanted to make that move, I would condone it.
I won't have Saka on my wild card, and I think he'll do well this week. So it'll be one of those hits that I'm just like willing to take for one game week with the long term in mind, and the whatever player I have in Saka's place, I expect to at least match Saka this week. But I do think Saka will do well. I think he'll be focal. You can see the Arsenal chances created in their last 6 away. It's all in that area where
It's
Odegaard
all
and
him.
Saka plays.
Yeah, it's all him as well.
It's just those areas line up really well.
I think I've seen as well. He's created like close to 12 chances in that time, and none of them have been converted. So it's kind of like I think this season he's more of a playmaker, is what I've been saying, as opposed to the goal threat he was last season. Saying that, he's also missed a lot of big chances on goal. So all it takes is kind of just one fluky assist from a corner that he didn't get, for example, the last game. And then like a few weeks later, a penalty, and then people will be like, oh, he's essential, he's essential. So part of me feels like if you're not going to get Saka, is there an Arsenal attacker you would get instead? Because my argument against him is more his price. I just think there's so many players in midfield who are giving you points that are more steady or similar for much cheaper and letting you do more with your team. But so other than price, like if I'm not going to buy KDB, I'll keep Saka, for example, because as an asset, that's what I would rather want. Right now, KDB's
Mm.
not got the minutes, I don't think. I don't think he's got the minutes. Pep saying, oh, he can start and play 90, but that seems different to what KDB said 2 weeks ago when he said, I need to get minutes and I can't play games. And so we'll see what happens
I mean,
tonight in
what
City versus
yeah,
Spurs first.
and we'll get to the City slide, but
Mm.
if KDB's like it's an important cup game, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
if KDB's fit, like I think maybe he starts tonight.
I think tonight he starts, but then the question is then how many minutes does he get? So does he get then like 60 and then he like starts again against Burnley and
If
gets
he's
90?
No, not he won't get 90, but 60 against Burnley at home.
Oh, again, just two
Yeah.
60s.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. It's a shame. I hope maybe the lineups will be out by the time we're finishing up. So it'll be interesting to see
Yeah.
if they come while we're live on air. But yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. There's 20 of you here live. Appreciate you joining us on your Friday evening. We'll keep going for the sake of time, and I'm sure we'll talk more about the Arsenal boys throughout in the Q&A as well, right? So I think we can cover this game in more detail. Otherwise, if we don't stop me, we'll never get past the first matchup of the week. So Fulham versus Everton. This one is in favor of Fulham on the NetxG, so 1.72, and Everton's 1.08. And as if by magic, in the chat as well, we've got Combe with us. Straight away, the Fulham fan base are here to support the matchup. But yeah, I'll let you tell us what you think about this one, because I think they're a decent team, Fulham, and obviously they had a few players who are injured recently. But overall, I'm quite excited to see what they can do to this Everton team, because I want to see that Pickford clean sheet get wiped. He's been the bane of my FPL season.
Pickford.
Yeah, all the time I had him, he did nothing, and then the moment I sold him, he's been like hauling every week.
I gotta be honest. I haven't paid attention to Pickford all season, so I don't know what's
but
going
now
on with
he's
that guy.
flying. Yeah, so now he's just got points since the moment the wildcards happened, and he got sold, like game week 8 to 10 period. Since then, he's just been like flying. I mean, he's like the top scoring goalkeeper in the game.
Yeah, I mean, well, we see the data really favor Fulham here, especially that right zonal. But that's the awkward thing, is that it's the right zonal matchup, right? And Iwobi's gone, and Fulham could really use him right now. So that's why I was thinking like, I wrote here, away Everton concede crosses from their left, but chances from the right. So it's over 12 crosses per 90 that they concede from their left, and but the chances themselves are generated from the right side. Pardon me. So I'm thinking diagonal balls to Willian, kind of Willian as a target, and then either Willian driving at that near post or finding Jimenez inside. I do see both teams scoring here, so in that sense, I agree with the data. I think maybe it's going to be closer than the data suggests. And the one thing is, whoever, like the way Everton will hit, right, is I want to say the battle, the Jack Harrison against Anthony Robinson battle should be interesting. Just the two really fast, intense players going at it. And then I also want to see who occupies Palhinha. So it could be like, Calvert-Lewin has a tendency to kind of, sometimes he drops in a little bit deep, sometimes he drifts off to the left. And if he does that and occupies Palhinha, then I think Doucouré could shine in this one. If it's Doucouré kind of occupying Palhinha, then Calvert-Lewin will be in some good spaces.
I have
But we don't have to spend too much time on this one. I don't
was
think
going to say we won't.
yeah.
I don't think it was buying assets from these teams
Yeah.
for the
Nope.
double game weeks and stuff coming up. So maybe we'll reassess once we see the cup results this weekend after Sunday and there's the draw. Obviously, keep an eye out, guys. That deadline's Tuesday. There'll be enough time to digest the information and what impact it has. But for me personally, I know you're wildcarding. So in terms of what I'm thinking long term, my kind of plan as it is, Gabe, is to kind of just buy players for double game week 25 and like maybe get to at least 4 or 5 of them and then take hits in 26. But the hits I'll be taking will be for people who've just doubled most likely and then don't play, for instance. And then I'm going to get someone who plays in 26 and 29. So I just really need the FA Cup fixtures to fall in a way where the teams that progress and the way the scheduling is done, that's going to actually benefit me to get assets from good teams with 2 decent fixtures, if possible, in both 26 and 29. Because then I'm taking -8 or -4, but I'm getting a player who plays 4 times in the time the player I'm selling plays twice. So as a kind of Sky player, but I'm buying fixtures. So I'm like using transfers to buy fixtures. And I really like that idea of doing that as well. So I think that's the route I'm going to go down. But it means that my wildcard will probably be after I've dead ended, right? So I've dead ended both 26 and 29. And then I think I'll wildcard sometime after that. And the question is, will it have as much value? Because doing it now, if you've kind of got your mindset, if you've already used a bench boost, for instance, you could use it now aggressively and actually have a much better gain and impact overall to your season, I think. And I think leaving it later is the risk that you get it wrong and it doesn't actually benefit you, and then there isn't much time left.
Yeah, and I think part of that opportunity that I saw was I can get the best players with the most fixtures now, while everybody's being cautious about the blank in 26, right? But if I
It's quite
wildcard
far
into
away as
all
well.
of
There's
those,
4 game weeks.
it's
There's 4 game
yeah,
weeks
yeah.
ahead.
So it's
I
a
want to
little
get the
while.
points now. Yeah, exactly.
So
Like a
I'll get all of the.
Richarlison,
I'll get
I
the.
didn't buy him, and I regret it in a way.
Yeah, I regret not, but yeah, my team didn't fix injuries and stuff like that. I wasn't able to. But what I was saying is like the way it lines up is I can maximize the players that I want to get now that are going to play the most games now, while everyone's being cautious about 26. I'm lining up to free hit in 26.
Okay.
What and so I can maximize all of those double game week players that people maybe aren't bringing in because of 26,
And the
and
4 weeks
then I can
now as well.
maximize in the 4 weeks now before that, and then I can maximize 26. And I think the differential team that I can get in 26 is better than the kind of template-ish team that I would get on free hit in like later on in the season. So like I actually I planned out my what my free hit team would be like, and it has like players that I don't want long term, players like Eza, for example, Rashford, Hwang. So it'd be like Watkins. I bring Watkins back for that one game week, right? I'd have Alex Moreno, right? Alex Moreno, Anderson, and so there are these players that have
None of them
really
you want
nice
long
matchups
term.
that you don't want any of them, right? So and
So
I
you're
think
targeting
I
the
can
fixtures of
kind
that
of be
week as well.
different. Yeah.
One thing I would say as well, though, just to be careful, is like I know the official account has tweeted out that there's the blank game weeks confirmed and all that, but the Premier League haven't, and like I think it could be played the midweek, but that will depend again on the FA Cup. So we'll 100% know before deadline, like at least what's happening, who's been knocked out. But right now, it's not 100%. Like it probably will be a blank, but it's not. All those blanks aren't guaranteed as they've been shared so far. I think FPL kind of went quickly, right? They hadn't had the official confirmation yet from the Premier League, and they went a bit prematurely there.
Quick
But
trigger. Yep.
yeah, they wanted to get the news out, maximize the impressions and views. But we'll keep going, as you say. And no offense coming to the teams in question here. It's just in terms of assets, I don't think it's what we'll be targeting. But this is a more exciting game in terms of FPL assets. So Luton versus Brighton. We have Brighton NetxG of 1.6 versus Luton 1.43. What are you feeling in this one? I'm an Estupinian and Gross owner. I'm still not sure about Gross. I do wonder if that was a bit of a mistake last week, but I'll keep thinking about that because I could have had someone like a Jota, right? And I just keep assessing that I got him for these 4 or 5 weeks. And so you know what I'm like, I'm not going to sell him. So he's going to be playing for like 6 weeks. But in my mind already, the signs are there where I'm a bit like, oh shit, why did I use a midfield slot for this? It's because I really wanted the Brighton fixtures. And obviously now I'm wondering, is this Brighton Luton game even as good as it seems on paper? Seems quite even in the NetxG at least.
Yeah, I mean the stats haven't liked attack versus Luton at Luton for much of this season. So statistically it'll be quite low, despite like that left zonal matchup really lights up for Brighton with 5 at 5.0, 5 chances expected from that, created from that side. And that's because Estupinian and Gross are kind of connecting. Estupinian is allowing Gross to get in different positions. So I don't know. I think both of them are really nice options. And Luton have all season they've been vulnerable to players that play kind of like between the lines. So Gross will be that's his jam, right? He'll be like between all of their lines, kind of like weaving different sides and kind of connecting the different sides of the pitch. But the other player who I really like in this is João Pedro. I think João Pedro dropping in, be in front of the back line behind the center mids is going to be absolutely lethal in this one. So I actually like the Gross pick, although I'm never confident in Gross myself. He might start at right back and do better, or he might start at the 10 and do worse. You just don't know.
Yeah. It's so crazy. But at least the one thing you do know in this time, and this is what was in my thinking when I got him, is just that he will be the first name on the team sheet. So like he will always play, and he'll be like the manager's favorite player. So you don't know where he'll play potentially, but at least you're getting a guaranteed 90-minute player. So it does help. He's very good in other formats, and I bought him in those as well. And I can see like that he's a good player, but like we just don't get rewarded for that as much in FPL. And that's the part where I'm a bit fearing, was it actually an FPL pick, or did I just go for the comfort blanket of minutes? On the other side, Estupinian, he's more exciting. I have him. And Lamptey, I still own. So part of me is kind of thinking he's there. And I actually considered, do I want to start Lamptey instead of Gabriel? But I was like, no, I can't do this. I can't start Estupinian and Lamptey after Brighton have had like 1 or 2 clean sheets all season and get carried away when Lamptey himself just come back from injury. And the last time I started him, he went off injured in like the 26th minute. I waited all season for him. And the week I last need, and I'm like, no, the double Brighton defense for that. That's that it's like I'm asking for punishment there. I'm a glutton for it.
It's baby James. You can't start baby James. Not when he's just coming back from injury. He's about to go right back.
Gabriel's
baby Reece James.
But Gabriel's got the flag.
So right. He's got the flag.
If he doesn't play, at least I know I've got someone who might cameo at a minimum. So I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to make a defensive move because Taylor's also flagged on my bench and he has City away. So, I need to make sure there's a third defender that could play if my third defender doesn't play, which then kind of makes me think what's left and what's the weakness in my team. So I've still got Salah, and I kind of feel upset about that game. I wish I'd sold him instead of Trent last week, but I kind of went for Trent instead of Salah, waiting for more info. Didn't know Salah was going to be injured. And then now I'm like, oh shit, damn, what have I done? So why have I done this?
But that's the kind of stuff that's so out of our hands, right?
So part of me is like, do I now sell him? And I'm like, I probably should. So that's why I'd love to do Salah to KDB if possible. But I need to see how he gets on tonight, and then.
So what I like, getting back to Luton Brighton, and this is a player who's really been nailed in my wild card for a little while is João Pedro. I'll come back to him. I mean, Luton, Palace, Spurs, Sheffield United, Everton, Fulham, Forest. That run of fixtures is so good, and that's like through 9th of March, and he's 5.5 million and on pens. I mean, there is a chance that
about his minutes, right? But I know he always gets minutes. So it's not that. I think it's more about his starts is the worry, because he was getting minutes even when he didn't start earlier in the season. So it must just be that we're all put off him for that. But yeah, I wish I'd gone for him instead of Gross as well.
I mean, I think there's always going to be a concern with minutes. At the beginning of the season, the concern was, and Roberto De Zerbi said this, right, was that he wasn't helping in the press as much, that he needed more from him and off the ball, right? But what's been happening recently, well, one, he has improved that. Roberto De Zerbi has actually given him credit for improving that. And since then, I think he also pairs him with Welbeck. Now that Welbeck is back, and that Welbeck does that so well, right? That gives Pedro a little bit more freedom. And if you look, Pedro has started 4 of the last 5.
He's pretty much like, he seems to be like, especially Ferguson not being starting. So that's always, I
wouldn't
the worry,
say nailed,
right?
but he's first choice. But I wouldn't say nailed. And Mitoma's going to come back, which I think is going to be better for Pedro. I don't think he's a risk to Pedro. Ansu Fati could be a risk to Pedro. Ansu Fati has been moved around the formation. Fati could play on the right. He could play even when he does play on the right, he drifts into the middle a little bit. So I think long term he is a risk. But for these next fixtures, I mean, let's just say the next even just the next three: Luton, Palace, Spurs, and then you get into the like 25, the double. Maybe I move Pedro to Darwin for the double or something like that, right? But I think for these next three on Wildcard, he presents a real opportunity.
Yeah, no, I like it. Got to attack those fixtures. Let's keep going. I'm sure we'll talk more about these guys again in the Q&A as well. I think a lot of these teams like Arsenal and Brighton, like they'll come up in people's questions about sells and buys, right? So I'm sure we'll discuss them, and it'll be interesting to see how they are if they appear in the captaincy metric, because it's always good to see if there's like kind of assets that you should have in your team, but maybe you're not considering captaining. I always have to have the top 10 in a game week if I can. But let's see. So Crystal Palace versus Sheffield United. We're 30 minutes in. I think it's the fourth matchup. So we're actually not doing bad at all, despite a few tangents as usual. But so Crystal Palace is 1.79 XG, net XG, versus Sheffield United 1.08. I think the only thing I'll say is I was wrong, by the way, about Archer starting with Diaz, Ben Berrington Diaz, and starting together regularly and all this. That didn't quite happen, but that wasn't a great call. But Ben Berrington Diaz, he looked great, got his goal, and then I think he's going to score again against Sheffield. I think. I mean, against Palace. So I think the next
Yeah.
despite it saying Palace is the one in favour, the Palace I saw last week against Arsenal are in disarray. Like the fans are calling for the manager's head. The manager's putting young kids under the bus that he's subbing on, saying that they're the reason that like the game completely got away from them, all this stuff. But it's painful because I love Crystal Palace. So it's tough to see them like that. But Arsenal needed to get back to winning ways. So got to take what I could while I could. But now that they're against Sheffield, this is a must-win game, and I do worry about the pressure that would be mounting on Roy if he doesn't get this. So yeah, it's a bit of a worry there. What are you thinking? Do you think that it's a kind of easy game, considering that Eze should be able to do absolutely, amazing work against this Sheffield United defense? I know we said they're better than earlier this season, but that doesn't mean they're like great in terms of Premier League quality still. They're just better than they were
No,
before.
I mean, I think this. I agree with the NetxG kind of. I see it like a 2-1 Palace. Seems about right. I shouted out Ben Brereton Diaz in the thread last week, and he came through and scored. I think Teacher mentioned that it seemed like he was taking the kind of cementing that starting spot. And I just like where he attacks Palace. On that left hand side, I think Palace can be weak, and Diaz can kind of like exploit that. But I think this game also lines up perfectly for Eze. On the left hand side, hitting Sheffield United both wide with they're vulnerable wide, but also between the lines. There are two areas where Sheffield United are weak, and those are two strengths of Eze's. I heard a stat. I was listening, and I heard the stat. I guess Palace haven't scored a goal from outside the box in like all season, and it's been like 96 shots outside the box since they last scored a goal from outside the box, which is interesting. I guess it's in line with Eze not being fit, but that's something to watch out for. I guess if Palace absolutely need to get inside the box, Sheffield United could make that difficult.
Yep. Okay. No, I think in terms of assets as well, as you say, is this a game where, if someone needs to play like an Archer, is this the time where you worry that he isn't first choice anymore? As you say, with kind of Ben Berrington Diaz cementing first choice, is he a good option to try and get to someone like a Haaland if we knew he was starting? I guess he's a sell, right? Like it doesn't seem like there's any value anymore.
Archer to Pedro is not being talked about enough,
and that's like very cheap for anyone. Yeah, like that is affordable,
easy to get to. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it'll be interesting one to keep a lookout on. But yeah, quick shout out as well to Kieran FPL Discomfort gifting a 1-month membership for it looks like a regular in the live chat. Coin has got the membership tick now, so he's got the fishing bait where they've first been caught and reeled into the ship of Net That Haul, and then as they grow in fish after the months of membership, as we'll see. But yeah, no, everyone, thanks for tuning in live. There's over 35 people nearly live now, so appreciate it. First time
Nice.
asking if you enjoyed the show tonight, if we make you laugh, or whether it's with us or at us, or if you learn anything new, please do hit that like button and help us get the word out there. So let's continue on. Aston Villa versus Newcastle. This seems like a quite interesting one to discuss, actually. So the data really loves Aston Villa, 2 NetxG versus 1.04 for Newcastle. So that's a big difference. Yeah, well, what are your thoughts here? Because I'm kind of a Watkins owner, and I've got to make a decision, right? Who do I sell to get like a Haaland eventually? And I would like to sell him, but the fixtures do look great coming up, and I just see no reason to. So part of me is like, I'm going to get rid of Alvarez instead, I think, because even though he's still a City player and he has a double and doesn't blank, I just ultimately feel like I could do more with that third slot. So Foden, Haaland plus someone else. I don't think Alvarez is that third pick for me. He's not the best third pick, so I want to move him on. But what are your thoughts about, say, Watkins? Like, should I be reassessing? Should I be going for like, getting rid of Watkins and essentially keeping an Alvarez with Haaland instead of?
I mean, I think it just depends on the timing of your transfers. I see Watkins the same way I see Saka. Two assets that will return, will always be highly owned, and are absolutely painful, torturous owns for me personally. And I want no part of them. And I think they're both going to do well this game week. I mean, this is a big.
You won't have either of them on your wild card, right?
And I won't have either of them on my wild card. Like, so for example, let's just say I'm taking on Ollie Watkins with João Pedro, right? Against Luton. I think they could have similar output. I'm saving like 3 million on João Pedro in that case, right? I can take on I'm taking on Saka with and this is a new development probably with Maddison, right? Because I expect Maddison to start. Maddison against Brentford, I think he could have a fantastic game. And I'm saving about 2 million in that, or 1.5 million in that, or something like that, right?
Maybe that's
so there's like 4.5.
Yeah, Maddison could be a way to make up for missing out on the Richarlison boat. Make that decision worth something.
That's
like
the way.
I gained an edge by getting the information or something of Maddison's return. Yeah, no,
Maddison back is exciting, especially for someone on wildcard. So I'm kind of in line with the data here. I do very much favor Villa. Gordon will likely be on my bench, although I do think he has a nice opportunity here. But the slides there that they show on the left, Villa chances created the last 6 away compared to Villa chances created the last 6 home. You see how the heat map lights up at home, and it's quite sparse away. And then the same thing for Newcastle, and this is chances conceded versus chances created. Last 6 away chances conceded for Newcastle, it's all lit up everywhere. And then the chances conceded at home, it's more sparse. So this is a good home team against a bad away team, and I think Villa will win comfortably. Although I don't know if there's a clean sheet in it. Despite that, I do like that Moreno Trippier battle on that side is going to be really interesting. That's something to watch for.
Just a final question: is Gordon someone who's back in your thoughts again? I got rid of him obviously a while ago, but when we did have him, we kind of both loved him as a pick. We thought he was one of the best value picks in midfield, and the fixtures after this week for Newcastle, the next kind of 3 onwards, 23 to 25, they look really nice.
I've not sold Gordon since I bought him in like game week 4. I think
okay, so you still got him fine.
Yeah, and he'll make it through my wild card. I think Gordon and Palmer are kind of equally good assets.
I like that.
They're like same level for me.
They're the gifts for you.
Such good
gifts of FPL.
And you said after this game week, starting in 23, their fixtures just open up, right? Like they're so good. So like Newcastle's that's another reason, like for the wild card, like Newcastle is a really good investment. If Trippier doesn't go to Bayern Munich, and
the window will be shut soon.
Exactly. The window will shut before the deadline. I don't have my dates. No,
maybe? I don't think it will. I think it'll
be no. Next Thursday.
Thursday, yeah,
But
jet lag Tuesday.
Luton Forest, Bournemouth after Villa. So Newcastle, that could just be another like Trippier spike, right?
Yeah, I have wondered about that. As someone who sold Trent, do I now kind of just go there instead? But I'll have a think about that in the
Oh,
future weeks. I think this week isn't the week to lump in on a defender for me, but as I say, I've got the players this week. I've got Lamptey on the bench. Like I've got bigger issues like selling Salah or getting harder for Alvarez or maybe Watkins out or like maybe Saka out. There's so many things I could do, and equally I could roll. If I didn't think Haaland was coming back right now, I reckon I would roll just so I had 2 free transfers and a bit more. But that's just the way I play. So we'll keep going to the exciting game, Man City versus Burnley, the one that we've been talking about all night. Nearly every other matchup has somehow had this matchup affect it because whether you buy players or not depends on if you want to prioritize getting matchups in this game. So 2.07 for Man City on the NetxG and 1.02 for Burnley. Seems like a 2-1 it's saying or 2-0, but I have a feeling it could be much worse. It really could. I'm looking at like 3-0 is my kind of like rough baseline of what can happen. And obviously, if City score early, I think it'll be much worse than that.
yeah. I mean, look at all the space. Like Burnley just really packed the midfield, so I think it'll be really congested in there. Obviously, they're not gonna pack it as high as they did against Luton, right? So that packed midfield that you see in the third slide will be probably obviously in the defensive third, but the line of confrontation should be right around a third. But for that reason, like Burnley playing so narrowly and packing the central areas so much, I really like Doku. I think Doku could have a monster game in this one. One of my favorite picks for this one specifically, but Doku won't be in my wild card. Unfortunately, I did consider him, but I wouldn't select him
He's a
long term.
super exciting punt, but yeah, I think if you're going to wild card, you don't want to be locking in a potential transfer out at some stage. So I just feel like if it was a punt, like if it was your transfer in, he was your third City asset this week, great, because you can wild card out if you get it really bad, but you're wild carding into
Right,
it.
he's somebody to wild card out of, yeah, not
Yeah.
into. And you can get similar things in terms of just like penetrating space with Foden. So um, Foden could be kind of engaged in that log jam in the middle, but Foden can also explode beyond that and flare off to the right. He can flare off to the left. He can make late runs into the box. So I think Foden's versatility in attack really just, I think he's a great captain shout this week. I think it just lends him for this game. Because he can do several things. Alvarez, what I wrote here is Alvarez continues to have a more periphery role, and he doesn't lead the line or receive scraps anymore. Alvarez is just kind of floats these days, and he floats and occupies space and occupies defenders, and isn't the one kind of like driving the ball forward into the box or towards the goal. And when Holland comes back, I think those areas, it's not going to be like early in the season where it might fall to Holland and Alvarez might get something from that. I think it's just going to be all Holland. So I think Alvarez is a sell, unfortunately, and especially given the other forward options that are kind of coming to the fore. And we talked about Newcastle assets with Isak and Watkins is fixture this week, maybe not long term, but I think Alvarez will be an obvious sell for most people. Maybe not this game week, of course, because Burnley always
Yeah.
presents an opportunity, but in game weeks moving forward.
So it's an interesting one because I feel like I would sell him for Haaland if I had any news Haaland starts. And on that note, Panenka Productions asked if you have Haaland, would you start him but not captain? So I think I would absolutely start him. Depends who you're benching. I'm guessing for a lot of people it's Palmer away at Liverpool. So I'm sure we can talk more about that when we get to the matchup there. But
So I have
yeah,
a question for you, actually. Say you get word, say you just know this, right? Hypothetical scenario. Holland plays, Alvarez plays 60, Holland plays 30 against Burnley. Do you sell Alvarez for Holland?
no, I'd keep Foden and Alvarez and try to roll the transfer or do Salah to KDB and bench Palmer. So that's the question here. It's like I don't see a
There's
world in which
some
I would do a -4 and do both,
right.
and I would happily also potentially just roll. So I could also just play Palmer away at Liverpool and not sell Salah.
Why not sell Salah?
because then I have to bench Palmer or Watkins. Like someone's getting benched, Solanke. Like I don't know if I have it in me. It's not the way I play, and I've been benching every week. I normally don't have an 8. I have a 7, like a front 7. So I always have the ones I play. And for once, since I got rid of Archer, I now have this benching problem, and I've screwed over with Palmer a few times. So I just don't know if I've got it in me. I've lost some big potential gains by benching Palmer Halls. And I know that this week I won't say, for example, do Salah to KDB, and then KDB will start. And, you know, I'll just have like a big blank from Palmer, for example. So it just feels like whatever I do is going to hurt. But that's why part of me saying I don't know yet. I'm not committed yet. But Salah to KDB is the most likely move. But in the question that we just got in terms of the actual situation there for Panenka, I think I would start Haaland. And if there was any kind of presser on Tuesday before the deadline from Pep that implies he's going to start, I would probably captain him too, to be honest. That's my biggest dream this week, is to bring in Haaland, captain him. He's a bigger priority for me than KDB by far. And if Haaland was back this week,
we're not gonna know if he's gonna start.
But he's not going to be in the squad tonight. That's why we're not in the squad. So that's bad, right? That's bad.
Is that confirmed though?
Pepper said that in his own presser. That he won't make the squad. That it's too soon. Is that he's not had pain for 10 days. You know, his foot's not got any problem right now, but it's just this game's too early. So you got to think, could he then be getting a cameo off the bench, like you said, 30 minutes? And if that's the case, like obviously then it's not a priority anymore. But for me, that's why I'm not making my moves yet. Because I just feel like that's the one big information for me this week that will make me decide, do I get KDB and bench someone, or do I just get Haaland? I would love to get Haaland. I would honestly love to. Like, it just feels like, so Panenka says definitely not in the squad for tonight. Yeah, so that's, so Pep's presser is on Tuesday, and the deadline is Tuesday. That's why maybe I'm optimistic, Gabe, that he'll say anything, and I bet he says something positive, and then embargo comes out after deadline that it wasn't positive, and we'll never know. What do you think about Blue Danube Joe's question before we move on? Just about Man City being better away from home this season. Do you think they've been playing better away from home?
Oh, honestly, it's not something I've really noticed. I can do a quick check here. Let's see, Man City home. XG, just go quick. XG 10.45. This is the last 6 home. XG conceded around 4. Away, it's a little bit better, 12.37. So maybe 2 more XG away, or they're generating 2 more XG away, but they're also conceding double the XG away than they are at home. So I guess it's a bit of a mixed bag. That's why I haven't noticed anything. Is like one thing might be better, but the other thing might be worse, and then the other thing might be worse, and the other thing better. But it'll be interesting to see how Man City change with De Bruyne getting healthy, Haaland getting healthy, but also John Stones getting healthy. And I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about Kyle Walker right now, and he's 90 every game. That's I don't think that's going to last, and it is the information we have, so fair enough. But I see rotation starting to take place, certainly for players that have played as many minutes as Walker, and I see players like maybe Josko Gvardiol. I think Gvardiol could be I've considered him in Wildcard. I think he could be cementing his spot, and KDB's reintroduction kind of gets Gvardiol further up the field, so I think he will have more attacking threat. And
he looks very good this season.
Balls. Yeah. And he's been getting better.
He's not been popular. Like, people haven't really looked at him as a popular pick, but he's very cheap as well. That 4.8. Yeah, it's so good.
And I think we're going to start seeing balls from Gvardiol on the left-hand side directly to Haaland. And this is just we haven't seen that yet, but I think things are developing in this way because KDB allows Gvardiol to get a little bit further forward. So something to keep an eye on. And Gvardiol is under consideration for me on Wildcard, except that the defender spots are just like, they're kind of cemented. You got Trent, Estupinian, Porro, Gabriel, and then you go Gvardiol, and that's a lot of money in defense that I'll probably want to move out of defense at some point. So, that's just something to consider.
Yeah, no, I think we'll talk about Man City later again, I'm sure. So we'll go to Tottenham versus Brentford. Obviously, the Man City's opponent in the cup tonight. 1.77 for Spurs. It sounds like Madison could be back as well, as you say. Brentford 1.57 NetxG. This is quite an exciting game, I guess. I have a feeling that the data, obviously, for Brentford, it doesn't really include much of Tony. So I am keen to wonder if that has a bigger impact than we can kind of see based on the last 6 weeks of data. What are your thoughts on Tony? Because he's obviously someone who some people might be considering buying. Like when I compare him to like a Watkins, everything about him feels better. Like I know he's playing for a worse team with worse fixtures, but the actual player, like when I'm watching them, he just seems the one I want as a pick in terms of what he does for FPL. Takes the set pieces, takes the penalties. You know, like the guy is ready. Like he could get a 9-pointer any week just with a penalty. That's something that Watkins doesn't
That's
have in his locker.
yeah, yeah. That's the thing with Tony is
Maybe
he
not as
always gets
consistent, right? But it's
bonus.
just the hauling is like the
It,
hauling potential is there. Like,
it's because so Tony's much more of a talisman than Watkins is these days, especially with the other players like Douglas Luiz stepping in there and providing like a lot of attacking threat. Not to mention Bailey and Diaby and then even McGinn, Ramsey when he's healthy as well. So I think Tony is just like he's too good of an asset. Brentford do well against the bigger teams because they set up in the 3-5-2, and so I think Tony will be paired with Mope, and like just watch for the Mope battle against the center back, especially Romero. Mope's going to try to occupy Romero, and I think that'll open up things for Tony. And the reason we see like Brentford's stats so high here, net XG is so high, and we see that shot XG is so high, it's because Tottenham's they're just not good defensively. They've conceded the second most shots in the box in the last 6 home games. Tony gets a ton of work in the box, so I really think this game lines up for both teams to score here and kind of like all the assets to do well. I mentioned earlier that with Madison back, I think also that transforms Tottenham. It makes everybody better. All the attackers should be get a boost with Madison's return. But in this one game in particular, I'm not too keen on Richarlison. I know some people were thinking captain Richarlison. I don't mind a Spurs captaincy, but with Brentford playing a back 5, so that's the 3 center backs. Richarlison is there to occupy space and kind of create the space for the runners coming in and for players on the flank. So I much prefer Madison in this one, and I think just given that there will be space on the flanks, and Reguilon is not available for Brentford. Brentford recently signed
yeah,
Reguilon,
true.
which
Because
he's gonna transform Brentford. It's gonna be totally different with him.
Maybe
But
we'll talk
yeah,
about him as a potential pick because obviously I think only City and Brentford double in 25 and don't blank in 26. So obviously I'm not going to get a defender from Brentford, but it's another reason why I do feel even if I sell, say, Alvarez or Watkins this week, I feel like the other one would go regardless at some point for Tony. I feel like Tony ahead of the double game week. I just can't avoid it. Like, and he doesn't blank the week after. As someone who's not using a chip like me, that would be more appealing. Whereas for you, you can free hit Tony in that week and not have to have him the other weeks or worry about the bad fixtures.
well, I bought Tony for a hit
You
last
bought him
game week.
anyway. Oh, for a
Yeah.
hit. Oh wow. So that's how long
I
I've not
captained
seen
him.
you.
He was
Damn. Oh, you captained him as well.
It's been
Wow.
that long.
That is
I bought him
incredible,
for a
man.
hit, and I captained Tony last game week.
What a
Yeah,
long.
yeah.
This was a
Tony
2-week
straight
game
in.
week, right? It started, and then
But
like
yeah,
10 days later, it was still. And here we are now, 10 days after the game week's ending, and there's still no deadline. It's just wow, what a month.
it's crazy. But what I will say is Tony didn't look he didn't look sharp. He didn't look fast. He didn't, and it took him kind of like 55 minutes to really get into the game. So I think it will be like Tony may take some time. He may not be as sharp as we're used to him being, but he will get you the bonus points. I really think he scores against Spurs. And yeah, just one of the best assets. And then with those doubles, he's kind of a no-brainer. It's going to be nice to be saying Reguilon's name again on the show.
It's been a while, yeah. We've missed him.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see if Madison can emerge tonight and maybe either start the game for Spurs against City. And do you have a prediction for their match tonight? Just as a side note before we go to the next fixture, like Man City versus Spurs. I seem to have kind of dismissed Spurs the whole way up until the lead up. But now I'm wondering if with Madison back, that does provide something different. Maybe this is the night when they knock out City and become favourites for the FA
And
Cup.
well, they always knock out City at the at the Tottenham Stadium, right? But I mean Madison back, but also maybe De Bruyne back. Maybe a
Both
cameo
starting.
from Holland if Holland's on
No,
the bench.
Holland's out.
So
He's definitely out. Yeah, he's like
okay,
fully
so
out.
he's
Yeah.
out. So without Holland, I think it just depends on KDB. I don't think Madison will start. I haven't heard anything about that. But if De Bruyne starts, then I think City beat Spurs.
Yep, I think so too. But let's see what happens. I suppose Liverpool versus Chelsea. This is an exciting game in the sense that it's always a draw. Like most of the ones I recall in the last few seasons since we've known each other and chatted through have either ended 0-0 or 1-1. So I just don't know what I'm expecting the reaction for Liverpool will be. Obviously, first time in this episode, we're touching on the breaking news of today that Klopp is leaving Liverpool at the end of this season. I was in shock when I heard it. I couldn't believe it. One of the greatest to do it in the Premier League. He will be missed. He talks about burnout. And if you watch the video, it looks like he is finished. So I don't think it's a Mourinho ploy just to be like, come on, guys, fight for me. Be extra motivated. Win me my title before I retire. And then they win and he goes, psych, I'm staying, bitch.
Nah.
I don't think it's that. He looks like he's fully done.
It also like look,
but I don't know
this
how
came as a
Liverpool are going to react.
surprise.
It was a big surprise.
Well, I mean,
man. Yeah.
but here's the thing: like this came as a surprise to everybody, right? But I'll tell you what, didn't come as a surprise to Liverpool. Like the reaction already happened. Like this is just a reaction to the public statement, but like it's not like the Liverpool players or like the club woke up and was like, oh my god, he's leaving. This was all planned. I'm sure they have a succession plan in place. They know what's going on. Like this isn't.
It's probably been announced because they have a succession plan, and he's leaving them in a good place with a good squad, having won everything he possibly could for them. And it's like, it's definitely a parting that is, in good terms. And I think he will take a break. I do think he won't join any club or national team next year. He will definitely have like some time to breathe. But I'm excited to see where he goes next. He says he's adamant he will not return to England. He says he will not coach another club in England. So that I believe, and he's a Liverpool man through and through. So fair play to him.
Yeah,
he's made the Premier League far more exciting. And if he wasn't here the last few years, who knows what it would have been like, that Pep era without Klopp to compete and make it the spectacle for all of us that it's been. It truly feels like the end of an era in the Premier League. So yeah, shout out to the Liverpool fans. Let us know how you're feeling in the chat. But yeah, so the reason I brought this up, I guess, is back to the matchup of Liverpool versus Chelsea, is I was wondering how they'd react on the pitch. Perhaps, as you say, maybe they already knew, and this is how they have been reacting, and that's why they're top by 5 points. Maybe they already knew. Maybe they didn't. I guess we'll find out and see if they continue business as normal or not. For my sake, I really, for one time in my life, I will be supporting Chelsea massively here. I need to take points if they can. Even a draw away at Anfield will do. I know the record, Liverpool have lost like a handful of times in years in the league at home. So a draw would be like a win in my eyes.
A small piece of your soul just died right now when you said that. You know that, right?
Well, the draw that I want Chelsea, that I want Chelsea to win again. Yeah, well, not win.
Yeah,
you
can say goodbye to. You can say goodbye to that
draw.
part of your soul forever. It's gone. You'll never get that back.
Yeah, supporting that team. I know. I can't believe it, but I have to. It needs must. The game after is Arsenal Liverpool.
For sure.
It's going to be a big game. I just
sacrifices must be made.
Yeah, Legion. Come on, man. I'm someone who's had to like back Spurs against City multiple years running.
Oof.
Like, yeah, it's tough. There's even a time when I can be a Tottenham fan.
It's not much of your soul left, Nima.
At least I don't have to own Harry Kane anymore in FPL. That's
that's right. That's right.
I feel like I can enjoy Kane as an Englishman now and not as a Premier League player. So I like him a lot more as just an England player than I did before.
I hope Kane breaks all the goal scoring records and loses and doesn't win the league. That would just be
I hope Granit Xhaka's Bayer Leverkusen get that title as he follows him there over to the Bundesliga. That would be nice. Storytell. So let's
But
in terms
to
of
get
assets, so
yeah
Jota
to
is
get to
my
this
question
one.
to you, yeah, because that's someone who I feel like
Mhm.
he's someone I read all wrong. Like that 17 pointer last week, I've not seen you since, and that was incredible. And it just feels like wow, like did I only not get him because of a potential blank in 26 in game week 21? And is it that I've maybe shouldn't now double back on what I missed because with Salah now confirmed out for such a long period, doesn't mean that actually it's still okay. Like this is still an entry point for me.
Only reason I didn't get Jota is because it was finally time to get Palmer. I hadn't had Palmer, but Jota was my favorite pick of the game week last game week, and true enough, he came through. I mean, he is the goal scorer that this team has needed. He's like everything that Darwin isn't. But saying that, and I do want to, I did write here that Darwin may find it difficult and may get kind of out muscled. But I'm gonna go back on what the slide says here, and I want to make sure I don't forget this, because it is. So last week I talked about how Chelsea struggled to defend crosses, and Fulham didn't really have enough of the ball to make their crosses really dangerous, but Liverpool will have enough of the ball, and I think crosses from like those narrow Trent crosses from deep could really open things up for Darwin in space, just like running right past Thiago Silva, to be perfectly honest. So if this game goes the way it does historically, then the chances will be limited, and it'll likely be a Jota type return on like a 1-1 type deal with a Jota return on one end, maybe Palmer, maybe Enzo, or something weird on the other end. If this game goes as the stats suggest, and as we've kind of seen, the eye test suggests as well of recent data, then I think Liverpool score 3. I think Darwin gets one. I think Jota could get a double return here. The heat map there just shows like where Chelsea are conceding in their away games, and they're conceding from that left half space, and that's where like Alexander-Arnold like kind of like slides in there and kind of whips crosses in. Those crosses that he whips in are perfect for Jota, who's not tall, but he's good in the air. And then
He's
when
crazy
the
good in
cross
the air.
comes, crazy good. He's like Mane, right? He is the Mane replacement because he's got that skill set. When the crosses come from deeper, I think that'll be Darwin running into that space in the box. So and then Diaz could get something. Diaz has just looked a little ponderous to me. Like he's not. He's missing that final kind of like line penetration, and he's getting stuck. When he makes one move, he gets stuck by the next line of pressure. So I want to see a little bit more form from Diaz. I just put him there to highlight his positioning. But yeah, I think Trent is a start, regardless. If you have him, you start him.
I think so.
And yeah, and I think Palmer. A lot of people are questioning whether they should start Palmer. I think he's benchable.
Depends who it's for, right? Like if
He's
it's like a Man City asset against
exactly.
Burnley, you got to just take that risk. I think you're
What if
right.
it's like Gabriel? I'd start Gabriel over Palmer, I think.
So I think that's a brain thing for me because I just try to play back three nearly every week for like years. But overall, based on like what I would expect points wise, I would be expecting more from Gabriel personally, even though it's away from home for Arsenal. Um, I feel like Liverpool at Anfield after Klopp's announcement versus a very young Chelsea team. I think I was said in the previous episode that I felt that there was a lack of leaders when the heads drop, and yeah, like there's just a lot of young players. So I'm not convinced that they're going to be able to do it. I think it's just more my hope that they can snatch some points. But yeah, overall, as it stands, I'm playing Palmer. I may not be if I buy KDB or Jota, but I'm kind of focused on waiting for Haaland until Tuesday, and then I might have to give you a quick call and be like, quickly, should I get KDB or Jota? Jota feels more nailed minutes wise, and my brain tells me, depending on what happens tonight with KDB, that if he gets lots of minutes because it's an important game, there's every chance he just does not even start Burnley. And there is zero need to rush him back based on how good that matchup was. There's just no need. So, like, part of me is kind of like, oh, okay, let me just wait and see because maybe I just do go for Jota. And this matchup is making me think I shouldn't just be thinking Chelsea great defensively from an underlying point of view this season. I should be thinking young kids at Anfield against a Liverpool that's fired up. Jota is, if there's ever a time to get him, maybe he's, I think for me personally, I'm prioritizing him more than KDB. And that's the conclusion I've landed on after an hour of chatting to you on the show. So, yeah, that's an interesting one for me because I didn't know I would prefer Jota over KDB, but as it stands, I do. So let's go to the last one, I think it is, or maybe there's two more.
Just really quickly, if Gianni says, remember Palmer plays in 9 the final minutes of the game. I'd suggest Palmer's not great at the 9. I prefer him a little bit deeper, like false 9. And he can push into that. So and there's always a chance of a pen, right? So Palmer,
there's always
I'm not saying he's a definite bench, just that he's benchable. He's in that conversation of players you can bench. I would bench Gordon before I bench Palmer, for example.
Yeah.
I'd play Palmer over Gordon. But I'd play someone like but I'd play someone like Gabriel over Palmer, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a fair one. Yeah, that definitely. West Ham versus Bournemouth. Jared Bowen was back in the lineup last game. So it looks like the early movers weren't truly punished. The ones who were punished most were the ones who bought him, then sold him for a -4, all before the same deadline. And then he started anyway. But that aside, who were the losers in your eyes? Just the ones who bought him in general. Yeah, well, Kudus's early return, I think, is looking a bit better. It's one of those cases of like their decision is like looking better by the minute, but it was for things out of your control, right? So Kudus himself is, I think, a good potential option over Bowen. And the reason I saw Bowen last week instead of Salah was I just felt like I wanted to get some extra funds. So going to a gross, that would free up funds for me for like a Haaland, right? So I was just downgrading everywhere, getting money in as fast as I could. So West Ham NetxG 1.47, Bournemouth 1.36. It's very similar here. Now, Bournemouth have been great. They had a crazy game in the cup. I don't know if you saw, they were something like 5-0 up at half time. Like the game started and I just kept seeing goal. And Bournemouth were just, obviously it's not the same level of competition, but it was, after two kind of tough games where Solanke blanked and people were thinking about selling him on. He's also in my list of Alvarez, Watkins, and Solanke. So he's the one who I'm least likely to sell for Haaland because I'm like, he's so much cheaper and he's on pens. And so he's got the things that I was saying Tony has over Watkins. So I'm like, and he doesn't blank and he could have a double soon that's yet to be scheduled. So if I'm someone who's not going to wildcard yet and his double somehow falls between 27 and 28 or something out of the blue, what am I going to do? I've sold him at that stage. I'm not going to bring him back in. So yeah, I think overall, that's the main thing for me. Solanke, I'm starting him, but he's another one that I could potentially bench instead of Palmer. So I'd be interested to know if it was between those two, if I'd brought in like a Jota or KDB and I had to bench one of Solanke and Palmer. I think they're the only two I'd bench just because Watkins home to Newcastle, the fact that it's home, I can't bench that. And the EO of him as the kind of player I am, he's like 100% owned.
You play Watkins for sure.
So then it becomes Solanke or Palmer, really. And that's interesting because everyone's been saying Palmer in the chat. No one's saying bench Solanke. Last time I benched Palmer instead of Solanke got 2 points and Palmer got 17. So I'm just saying, I was in this exact situation a couple of weeks ago.
Wait, you benched Palmer against Luton? Was it Luton?
Yeah, I know. It was. But it was just off the back of the Solanke hat-trick, right? So very short-term eyeballs there. And it was like, oh yeah, Bournemouth are playing against a team that's going to line up with a high defense and they're going to expose it. And there was a lot of kind of, I looked at single
this is a little bit different. This is Palmer against at Liverpool instead of I guess it was at Luton, but instead of Palmer at Luton, Palmer was a top pick at Luton.
He was.
It's different. I definitely play Solanke, bench Palmer in that scenario. Yeah, you can see in that first the average position map, just the West Ham center backs, they play so far apart. They jam they're further up the field in that one because obviously it was the game against Sheffield United, but you see in previous average position maps they are quite far apart, and I think Solanke can take advantage of that. The zonals show the left and right kind of popping for creativity. But I just think that's where the chances will be created from. They'll come from the flanks, from Tavernier and so on. And I think it'll be Solanke between the center backs actually getting the goal. I think the Calvin Phillips signing for West Ham is massive, because when they lose Paqueta, and they really suffer, and I think Calvin Phillips will. He doesn't do what Paqueta does, right? He doesn't have the incisive passing. But like Calvin Phillips isn't going to find Bowen or Mohamed Kudus there on the right hand side and put a ball on their foot from distance. But he does solidify that central midfield for players like maybe Souček to get a little bit further forward and also be an option. Maybe James Ward-Prowse gets more involved, and James Ward-Prowse can deliver those balls on a dime. So I think Calvin Phillips just gives this team a lot more room to grow as a team. And but what I'm looking for West Ham, where that just elevates everybody, is the return of Paqueta. Until then, I think they're still a bit dysfunctional, and it's hard for me to own players from dysfunctional teams like that. So Bowen, while he continues to get in good positions, he wouldn't be a pick for me. He's also not an immediate sell or anything like that.
What about Kudus? Just on that, Tricky's asking if Kudus is back. So yes, I think Ghana's been knocked out the cup, and he had a pretty sad interview where he got the man of the match. He was like, yeah, like thanks or whatever, and obviously he's massively disappointed. But he was a superstar at the tournament, but I think the team let him down overall. So I know a lot of upset Ghanaians out there. Yeah, it's not, it's a long time before the next game for West Ham and when Ghana will have last played. Yeah. So I do think that he's just going to be back. I think it will be fine. But any thoughts on Areola? So I have Areola and Dubravka this week. I'm kind of playing Areola because it's the home game against Bournemouth. But Dubravka away at Villa, whichever goalkeeper I play, one of them is playing against Watkins or Solanke. So it's like, that really messes with my head. It's like, whichever goalkeeper I play, they're going to play against one of my strikers. And I hate weeks like that.
I see how like having Areola makes you want to play Palmer over Solanke, right? So you don't have that dissonance in your head, right?
Yeah, something in my head just like, it's like, who am I going to back? And I'm not going to bench Watkins, and that's just not going to happen. So then it's like Solanke and Palmer are next.
Yeah, that does make it tricky. I mean, look at it as rather than upside limited, you're hedging. If Solanke blanks, hopefully you get the points from Areola, hopefully maybe some bonus points in there as well.
Yeah. You say that, but last time I watched him, he conceded. So he finally conceded after the hours of football of not conceding.
Well, he went off before the second goal though, right? So he saved you.
Yeah, but in a way, I was so annoyed because I would have been happy to lose the 1 point, man. I would have been happy to risk losing that extra point for the chance of like a 5 or 6 points, is it, for a penalty save? 5, I think, and a bonus he probably would have got. So I would take that 7-point swing over -1. Just imagine he saved it. I would have been laughing.
That would have taken those odds. You would have taken those odds. The 7-1.
Red or green arrow. Yeah. Honestly, that one moment would have been the difference between my red and green arrow last week. Just so.
See, I don't see it that way because I don't see arrows.
You see it saving the point. Yeah, you don't see the arrow. That's true. Let's keep going, and then we have one more matchup before we get to the captaincy and the summary. So Wolves versus Man United. How are we feeling here? It's 0.91 NetxG for Man United, 1.57 for Wolves. The data in Wolves' favor. I think Wolves have been good recently, and they are at home. But I don't know. Like Rashford looked great, right? Like he was a good kind of like punt for anybody who wanted him recently. So they're not long-term picks. I know what you were saying about your free hit in 26, but they do feel like they're turning it around a bit. And I don't know. Like I just don't think Wolves can win this game personally. Like I see this as like United making an important statement away win. Like after obviously like a winter break, like I'm thinking they might reset like Arsenal did, but maybe I'm just being optimistic.
Well, depends which side of the coin you're on. A United resurgence seeing a United resurgence might be pessimistic for some people. I see. I see it quite the opposite. Gary O'Neill is a better manager than Eric Ten Hag. Coming home Neto healthy. Cunha is so clever. I think he will turn the center backs inside out. And I think Neto and Cunha will combine on that on United's vulnerable kind of like that right side, especially if Dalot is playing. I think United will try to get Dalot a little bit further forward and try to beat Wolves on the flanks where they're weak. But I don't think it's going to work. I think Wolves will be more organized. They have a better manager. They have better players, and they're just going to be more organized. I like Cunha to get something here, maybe assisted by maybe Neto with some creativity, an assist or two from Neto. If United are going to score, I mean, they can only do anything from their left. Look how poor their right is. So they're just so predictable. But so Podna says Varane and Martinez will play together finally. So I guess that could change things for sure. Sorry, I don't know if it's really loud. If you guys can hear that, it's like
it's just like a background. You can't hear it too badly. But
okay, good.
Yeah. So Grady says we all know this will be the annoying highest scoring match this week. So that's maybe more in line with what I'm thinking.
And Wolves know that United had no business beating them at the beginning of the season. Now that they're returning home, I do think that this is a statement game. I think it's a statement game for Wolves more so than United. But getting those two center backs back, Ten Hag allowing maybe his best center back in Varane to play, and Martinez back will be massive for them. So I think this will actually be an entertaining game, or it could be an
nice
entertaining game if
for
United
me,
show
a game
up.
I'll just enjoy watching and try scout some assets and see if there's any upside somewhere. Because there's some cheap players who've been dropping in price because of the underperformance earlier in the season. But you got to always be open-minded to change. And I'm optimistic of the break for every team. I think it's been a long few years for football players with the cups as well and the condensed season, and they just seem to be playing 70, 80 games a year every year these days. So been a huge increase in injuries this season, especially serious ones, unlike most years that I've seen. Personally, I've not seen this many major massive ACLs in both men and women's football. So yeah, I feel like the TV companies have been pushing a lot for a lot of people to play a lot of games and not considering the human impact or the material impact of those perhaps money-making decisions, I could say, to be political and to not get cancelled in case somehow one of their employees is watching. So the Gameweek 22 NetxG summary. Do you want to maybe just give us the top three for the game week, and then the timestamp is 1 hour 17 as well for anyone on pod?
Yeah, a couple things I'll highlight. Villa at home. This is like the game of like home away splits, right? So Villa at home, Newcastle away. Villa at home, great. Newcastle away, not good at all. Liverpool at home standing out. Their data is kind of top of the league in most metrics. And Manchester City at home. Those are the kind of like the three main teams you want to get in on. One thing we didn't talk about is the goalkeepers. So just do note that like for United, for example, United away, Onana has a lot of saves from big chances and stuff like that. But Onana is obviously he's still at AFCON, so take the goalkeeper metrics with a grain of salt. But I think we can move right along.
Yeah, let's keep going. And then just one last summary before we get to the captaincy metrics. So this is the FDR summary from Mariner's sheet as well. So for anyone listening on podcast, this one is 1 hour 18 is the timestamp for this one and 45 seconds. So yeah, so just putting those in for everyone. In terms of this one, I'm just going to quickly read it out for the podcast listeners who can't see it, but obviously the viewers can. Just top three, similar to what you did. So for the attacking FDR, we actually have a Aston Villa top for the game week with 5.5. It really likes their home fixture against Newcastle. And then we have Liverpool home to Chelsea with 5. Man City home to Burnley only with 3. And they make the top 3 for attacking FDR. So it's interesting to see both Villa and Liverpool quite high up there. And it gives me a bit more thought towards that Jota over KDB, having another kind of sample of data to look at as well. It feels like that could be quite exciting, especially if KDB plays a lot tonight. Defensively, though, Man City are 3.2. They're the best defensive FDR of the week. So that's huge for them. Crazily, he has Arsenal and Wolves tied for second best FDR defensively, 1.8 and 1.7 for Crystal Palace home to Sheffield. So here we are, 1 hour 20. We've made it to the captaincy metric, and then we're going to go straight to the Q&A, guys. So we've started about 18 of your questions. We have a few from the Discord server as well, from the members. Do start getting your questions into the live chat if you want anything answered, and we'll definitely spend 10-15 minutes at the end just running through a few questions. But before that, please do hit that like button if you've enjoyed this show. Second time asking, 1 hour 20 in, I always forget. But yeah, subscribe if you're new as we try to get closer to the 3,000 subscribers milestone as well. And yeah, we appreciate you guys who've tuned in live. Let us know what you think about the live ads. We've disabled ads altogether and only turned them on after the stream for the last two, just to experiment and see if it's a less disjointed viewing experience and it can be a benefit going forwards for anyone tuning in live versus watching it afterwards on the recording where we'll have turned on the ads eventually. So we just felt there was way too many ads and they've removed the ability to limit how many they show once you're live. It's all inserted automatically these days. And even when I put it as the setting as the most conservative number of ads, it still seems to do it quite a lot when we're live every 10-20 minutes. So yeah, give us any feedback on that, what you think, but hopefully you can all enjoy that benefit, for the rest of the season of no ads if you tune in live on the day. So all of that said, without further ado, let's get the captaincy up. Okay, so this is a couple caveats, but number one is Darwin Núñez himself, 89 points for Liverpool. Watkins is 86 on the metric. Foden is 86, tied with him on the metric. And Jota the Slotter, as someone was saying in the chat, 83. Julian Alvarez is here. Richarlison's here. Cunha, De Bruyne, Grealish, and Palmer's quite high, but him and Solanke are quite equal. So for the kind of adjustments for anyone who can't see on pod, so Jota's been given an average minutes of 80 for the match, De Bruyne 60, and Tony 90. So they've all been adjusted manually by Mariner to kind of see where they would sit based on that information. So yeah, so what are your thoughts on, I guess, kind of a Darwin leading the pack, and then just behind him, Watkins and Foden tied with Jota and Alvarez and Richarlison rearing up? Does that feel right to you? And then secondly, about De Bruyne, what you feel about whether 60 minutes is realistic, I guess.
I mean, I think there's opportunity for Darwin, but I don't see how Darwin is higher than Jota, unless Jota's XGI and BCI keeps him low, but that's probably because of a minutes thing. But Jota's up to 80 minutes, so I don't know if that's something that Mariner changed. If you're going to bump the minutes up to 80 minutes, then surely you should the XGI and the BCI jump up. And if that's the case, then Jota,
that might push him to the top, right?
Exactly. So then I think Jota just jumps over Darwin in that case, and rightly so. If you're going for a Liverpool asset, I think it's Jota all day. If you want to captain Darwin, I think he's a fine captain show. We talked about the reasons why. Just running into those channels and going on like early, narrow kind of crosses from Trent. Robertson will be back as well. We didn't talk about that and how that makes Liverpool just like more solid and better going forward to begin with. I'm just looking, and Foden has decent numbers there as well. I'm curious why Foden, just looking at the numbers, they look pretty close to Darwin's, maybe slightly better. So that's probably like just splitting hairs, like Darwin, Watkins, Foden, maybe like a second tier with Jota top tier. And then the one player that's not in there and I think is reasonable is someone like Maddison. De Bruyne has made it in, but if Maddison is back, obviously I don't think we would captain him because it's too risky, right?
No, you're just saying in terms of how good it would actually look in the data if they were to have their minutes adjusted manually, like even Haaland as well, right? So I think in terms of your point, like as Podner and you have both alluded to, Darwin has basically more data in the past 6 games than Jota. So I think that's the thing. So even though Jota's minutes have been increased, none of the other metrics that would have increased had he played more minutes are increased with it. But yeah,
Right.
so it's kind of not 100%. The manual adjustment can only take you so far if it's not holistic. So take some of it with a pinch of salt, I think, is the feedback. They always apply the context to the data. Yeah, I think we just go to the Q&A from here, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Podman says it's great without the ads live. And Combs' last question here: who is the player at the bottom? Raul Jimenez made it to the captaincy metric.
He made it.
He made it.
It's a big day for Calm. It's a big day.
So it's a big result for them. So yeah, let's keep going. So just before we do the Q&A, we've got 20 starred now, so a couple more questions have come in. Quick plug for the free mini league for all the viewers. The code is HUP69D. So that's the main Net That Haul mini league. It's also in the video description and podcast description if you want to use the auto join link. In terms of our memberships, so if you're a Discord member or Patreon as well, we've got the Haul or Nothing mini league. So this was the first 6 weeks everyone joined. And for the game week standing, we had a net 93 from Luke Butler. We had a 84 and second from Dread FPL, both on Wildcard. We had Sirahu on 76, that hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then Mike Evans on 76 as well, and Kevin Rose on 76. So those three were tied in third on 76. So I just wanted to call out kind of those top 5, I suppose, of this game week. But overall, we have a leader now, Gary Horwood. He's on 1,303 up in first place. So broken the 1,300 point barrier. Congrats, mate. Well done. In second, we have FPL Planner. Third, we have Cyril Hall as well. So not only had a great game week, but top 3 as well in the mini league. We have Dominic in 4th, Connor in 5th. So Elron, who was the leader for a runaway leader for a while, is down in 6th. So unfortunate, buddy. Yeah, it looks like I'm catching you. I'm there in 8th. I'm coming for your spot, mate. I'm looking to take it for myself. So keep a lookout for me over your shoulder when you sleep at night. Moving on. Quick thank you to all our haulers and then the Q&A for sure. So Super Haulers, FPL Robbie, Greenback Golf, Harbour Boy, David Harrison, FPL Discomfort, True Fandela. Our haulers, Dread FPL, FPL Craig, Podner, Kevin Rose, C Hunt, Blonde, Escotters M, FPL Teacher, Donny FPL, Tom Gorsuch. We have Devindra Raj, Lindsay O, FPL DG Boy, Akshay, Dom, Claire, Tursk, Catherine A, Harry Not Kane, Sebastian Koo, Neil, Benjamin Lockwood, FPL Rubber Ducky, Nick Khan, Big Mike, General Zod, FPL Planner, Jamie Baker, Brett M, Mark Bond, FPL Eric, Grady, Parag, GV, Jasker and Singh. And then our Patreons to wrap it up, Elron, Lucy and Gann, FPL California, Thingamabob, Rom Frost, Mike Burke, and our latest one, Dr. Green Thumb. Hope you are all well. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It's been very helpful. And yeah, like just going into the questions, I think, to wrap up the show. So 1 hour 27 is the timestamp for the Q&A. I just put that down quickly so that anyone who's put questions in the live chat can come back if they've not seen the whole show. Let me find the ones on Discord first, and we'll get those out the way, and then we can go to the live ones. So please do keep getting them in the live chat. So the YouTube questions from Discord. We have the first one is from Thingamabob. 6 million midfielders, Gabe. Eze or Elise if fit, Gordon or Gross. Who else is of interest? And Greenback Golfer said Palmer, Ward, Prowse, Neto, Douglas Luiz. So out of kind of roughly those 6 million midfielders, is there any names you didn't hear that you would also be looking at? Or is it mainly those guys, kind of Eze, Gordon, Gross, Palmer, Neto, Douglas Luiz, Ward, Prowse? Is there anyone missing from that list?
Pretty soon could be Huang.
He could be, yeah. That's one to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, he Chan Huang for the double against I think they play Sheffield United in 25 is a really nice shout.
Nice one. Okay. Let's I think in terms of, for me, I would be in that list personally. I imagine like Palmer and Gordon are the top 2, as you said. So if you didn't have either of them, I think they're the 2 I'd be prioritizing. Before we get to the next question from the Discord, quick shout out as well to Grady. Thank you so much for the super thanks or super sticker. It means a lot, and he adds his comment, so I'll read that up as well real quick. So for those of you that don't know the amount of work that goes into a YouTube channel, not to mention a channel that adjusts to news, subscribe, AdSense pays very little, give these guys their dues. Thank you so much, buddy. That means a lot, and all the members as well. It really helps us keep the channel alive and keep going. as well as hopefully, obviously, our little community of about 40 of us in Discord, where we can kind of all chat to each other and keep up to date with the latest changes. But yeah, thank
So
you
I
all
didn't
for your
know, like
support.
I can do like fireworks.
Yeah, so I've seen this happen, but I've seen it crash. I've seen Harry do that on the new laptop. I didn't realize it was a Mac thing, I think. Is it something
Is that
that
what it
you
is?
recently? Yes, I think it's a new thing. And I didn't know because I saw you do it on the show. And all this time I assumed there was a button you were pressing. But then when I saw Harry do it, the actual whole thing crashed and like he like the whole stream went to shit. And like, yeah, so I think it can be buggy. So when I saw you do it earlier and the fireworks came out, I was like, oh my God, is he coming back? I was like, is he frozen? I was so scared for a second. But just quickly back to the Q&A. So we've got a bench question from FPL Hunt. There's 4 in the back line. There's Walker, Estupinian, Trent, and Gabriel. Bench 1.
No.
You have to send the
No.
rest of your team
Bench someone
FPL Hunt.
else.
You got to send us.
Connor, come on. He's in the chat. Connor's in the chat.
Yeah.
He'll let us
Tell
know.
us who else you have. I think for me, if I was gonna bench one, I hate to say it, but it would probably be Gabriel and just pray that lightning doesn't strike twice in terms of attacking returns, because I don't expect a clean sheet in that game. So final one from the Discord, and then we'll go to the ones in the live chat. Sebastian Ku, will you buy KDB or Jota this game week? Liverpool versus Chelsea is always a cagey game. KDB price rising 0.3 before the game week starts is crazy. And then Catherine also adds to it, I'm also interested in this, but if I get KDB, then I can't easily get Haaland back. And do you think Haaland will be eased back and we can wait another week? So will you buy KDB or Jota is the first part, yes or no? And secondly, do you wait another week for Haaland? And do you therefore get KDB even if it means it's going to be harder to get Haaland the following week?
I mean, so I'll answer. I think I'll answer it with the context of the game against Spurs, right? So Haaland won't be in that squad.
In the squad.
So I think you wait another. You can wait a week to get Haaland. If he gets 30 against Burnley, then you get him in, right? If he's playing against Burnley, then you get Haaland in. KDB's a little bit different, right? Because if KDB starts against Spurs, then I think you bring KDB in for sure. But if KDB only gets 30 minutes against Spurs, right? Then you have to wonder, is that thing that he said accurate? Is he going to get 30 minutes for a while, for a few weeks to get back into it? These are his comments, right?
But then Pep's the one who said the opposite of he's ready to start and play 90.
But
so I think it's somewhere between the two, and neither one is like giving away the cards. Like City really want to go and win the title again.
So
all their players are coming back
Wildcard
as well. Stones is back, and he said like so much is about to change.
If KDB plays, right? If he plays against Spurs today, on Wildcard, I probably have both.
Okay.
Because I want to get ahead of the game. I don't want to be making these transfers
later,
like in the future.
So
and
what's
I
your
think
preferred
30.
What's your preferred free from City then? On that note, and then we'll go to the live Q&A. So Haaland, KDB,
Foden, and Foden.
Foden. Okay, Foden's the third. Okay,
well, yeah.
Okay, so C Hunt's thing as well. And they've just added in that benching decision I told you about. So from FPL Hunt, Trent, Estupinian, and Walker, Gabriel. I think it would probably have to be Gabriel because the other players are Alvarez, Watkins, Solanke, Foden, Bowen, Saka, Jota. I just can't see anyone else there. Like, I honestly don't like. If you've got Bowen as well, like I can't be benching that for Gabriel. I'm sorry. So yeah, not for me.
It's close, but Gabriel,
it's close, but I think I'd have to, just in that situation. Yeah, I think if you go back to, we'll put the Liverpool timestamp on straight after the show, black screen. Good to see you. Let's go. Yeah, definitely go check that out. I think it's around 55 minutes in, so we'll kind of have talked on Klopp there. Let's go to the Q&A in the live chat now. So this is related to what we said at the beginning when we said you hadn't looked at your live rank from Giannis. So aside from mini leagues, I play to improve last year's rank. Improving performance has to check rank. What do you play for? So I think they're right. The question is whether you should check rank or not, whether it's mid-game week or at the end of a game week or not in a season, depends on what you want. And you want to enjoy the game and not let it cloud your decision making. So checking the live rank goes against that. I would argue that maybe mini leagues is a main reason to look, I would say, Jarnis. But I think improving on last year's rank, you don't have to necessarily know what your rank is now to improve on it.
Right.
You could look at it every
And
summer and analyze the whole year of what you did backwards after it happened without any of the rank being known to you. So I would say mini leagues for me is actually the reason you would check. And I'm in a lot of
but
mini leagues.
even mini leagues, you don't need to check rank. You just have to check rank in the mini league, right? If that's what you're playing for, you're just like
Yeah, but then as
competing
in
with the people in the
true, but I
minis. You
guess
don't
you
need
might start
OR.
to guess where you are roughly if you look at mini leagues too much. So I think for the full pure way of not knowing at all is really hard to not know, right? Like
Yeah,
any misclick could
yeah.
accidentally show it to you.
You'll have a reference with other people in your mini
Like an
league.
anchor,
But
right?
I would suggest that maybe checking rank doesn't help you improve. Checking rank throughout the season may not help you improve. I think that's something that's
Checking what
to
impact
TBD.
decisions had to your rank at the end of the season and looking at your chips in your past
Sure.
history and what impact they had might help you over different seasons build up different strategies that you found more productive more often. But I do think you could play without looking for sure,
Yeah.
as you
Yeah.
were showing. So K7's question: do we start Palmer against Liverpool? If I buy Jota or KDB, absolutely not for me. I'll be benching him. So depends who you're gonna play. I wouldn't be benching him. Well, we said we would potentially bench him for Gabriel. I think that's the limit of where I'd go to. There's very few players I'd bench him for, but Gabriel's one of them.
Yeah, I think we said he's not a bench, but he's benchable, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's not like he's benchable if you absolutely need to, but he's not a bench. We have Podna asked, is Pickford a better keeper than Raya? In FPL, I guess this season, potentially he has been. I wouldn't let past points dictate my future moves, and Arsenal's defense in terms of like the actual goals conceded and big chances conceded, like is top tier this season. And I would want Raya for sure in FPL going forward. So I wouldn't let
I'm
the previous points cloud my judgment.
I have
Um,
Raya's in my wild card. He'll be my wild card keeper.
Chloe asks, attack the doubles, i.e. Saliba to Walker, or move the blankers. I currently have 5. So sell someone like Gusto to Van Heck, or move Saliba. Who see that's tough, isn't it? Because could you not just do like Gusto to Walker anyway? Like I guess you can't because of funds, but why does it have to be Van Heck? Like I feel like if I was gonna, it must be a money thing, right? I'm guessing they can't like Saliba to Walker is a finance situation, but I would try to keep Saliba and do Gusto to Walker if possible. Personally, I don't know if that works for you, Colin. Let us know in the chat, but
Or
keep.
do Gusto to Gvardiol.
Yeah, we were discussing
Maybe
Guardiola,
you
yeah,
can make that.
4.8 million.
Yeah.
Watkins and Saka are the only two that TS editor has had all season. GV asks, Ollie Watkins a
Ouch.
captaincy
Sorry
this
about
week?
that. It's terrible.
Would you captain Ollie Watkins this week? Not for me.
Yeah.
I
I
wouldn't
think he's
personally,
a
but I think
captaincy
he's
shout this week. I
captainable.
wouldn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
He was up there he was in the top tied, right? The top 2. So
Mm-hmm.
he is a good shout, as the captaincy metric showed, but not for me. John has asked, any news that Ramsey is coming back to enable Moreno and therefore Watkins more? Unfortunately, we don't know, but keep an eye out on Craig as
He's.
well, and he might have news, but I don't
I
think
was
he
I
is.
was I was looking into it, and apparently he's still. Here I had it up here because I was writing the matchups. January 14th, he says currently being assessed 25%. January 14th, which is like almost 2 weeks ago, is the last report. Thumb pain. We didn't take a risk on him. If he has an injury, we hope it's not a lot. So very little information on Ramsey, but I agree. Ramsey there would kind of elevate that left side.
I'm just going to do one more thing from FPL. Matty wins a lot. So they were saying about they think it's pretty good not looking at your overall rank, because a lot of weekends when you've got red arrows, it kind of puts a downer on the weekend. I feel that way. He also says a lot of managers look at the rank halfway through a game week. So fair play to Gabe for not looking at his rank all season. I think there's a lot of the discipline and willpower there involved. I wouldn't know if I could do it. Nahal says, when KDB returns, do you think that pushes Foden onto the wings, or do you think KDB plays more as a deep 8?
So this is where like we just have to see how everything changes, because KDB returns. Foden could be pushed up on the right wing, right? And then that would mean that Bernardo Silva moves inside and drops into that left back position. You know, when Bernardo Silva was playing like a center mid, but he dropped into left back to receive the ball to help progress the ball forward. And then that dynamic, what that does is it gets Guardiola further up the field. So there's this whole kind of domino thing that could happen. And whether Foden goes to that right wing or starts to get rotated, or I think remains to be seen. But I think he does push Foden further up the field, and Bernardo Silva moves and serves. I don't think it'll be KDB playing a deep 8. I think it'll be more Silva dropping in to play the deep 8, and KDB will be higher.
Makes sense. So we've got another one here from K7. Just a statement that they think FPL rules should change to 4 players from each team. I think that could be quite interesting. It's a nice thought. Tricky says Braithwaite filler on the bench. Could that be a good enabler instead of like a Charlie Taylor who I have? I think if I could get from Burnley to Everton defense for a similar price, seems like I would. What are you doing, I guess, for fodder on your wildcard? Like, do you have any fodder, or is everyone playable assets?
I mean, I think Gusto's value is insane. I think he's still 4.1 million. However, he will blank in 25, right? So it depends on what your strategy is for
26.
25. Sorry, 26, right?
Yeah,
He'll blank in 26. Yeah. So it depends what your strategy is for 26. Since my strategy is a free hit, then
Gusto makes more sense. Yeah.
Gusto's a great enabler. And then also just keep your eye on Trippier, because if Trippier goes to Bayern, there's still a week before that can get done. If he goes
I think
to Bayern,
apparently they bought someone. So I think they bought someone. I think they bought different. I think they bought Sasha Bowie from Galatasaray potentially. I think he was going for a medical, but yeah, I don't know if it's gone through. But Grady asks, I need to bench either Bowen or Gordon. I think I'll be benching Gordon this week. I think it just seems like that's straightforward one for me. BW Splitter. Am I nuts for considering Solanke captain here with Sufao and Alvarez's absence? Foden best captain option otherwise. I'm currently on a Foden captaincy as it stands, not having bought Haaland. And Solanke captain away at West Ham. I don't personally love it. What about you? Would you? I just feel like City captaincy. Yeah, I can't be going for a West Ham captaincy over City. I mean, sorry, Bournemouth even, but yeah, like away from home for Bournemouth compared to like at home for City, I can't. Is Richarlison a good captain shout for Gameweek 22? It's from Endua.
No, because he's up against the back three, that 3 center back. So it's not a Richarlison game in my opinion.
Co-masks German national team for Klopp. So extending what we was talking about Klopp when we said about kind of him probably taking the 1 year break. So I do think he will take that break next year. He won't join a club or a national team. I guess maybe I could see him going for a national team next, but overall, I do know that he was pretty clear he would not manage in England again. So he's not going to manage an English club at least.
I believe him that he's burnt out. I don't think he does anything for a while.
You think he's going to take like a sabbatical like Guardiola and just like take some time? Yeah. Enjoy the success.
Yeah. The Germany job is I think it's obvious. That it would be there for him, but I don't think he's not going to pick that up before the Euros, right?
True. C Hunt Darwin captain in a show with Gabe. So I know. I never thought I'd see that day. Paneka Productions asks, play Gross or Doughty? Oh, I would play Gross. Yeah. Gross. I learned my mistake benching a cheap midfielder away at Luton already this season when I lost those Palmer points. So again, thank you to Grady for the super sticker for the 199. I really appreciate that, buddy. Black screen. So go back to the Liverpool timestamp for most of the Klopp talk. But in terms of just this question, based on the fact that he's burnt out and I don't think he's going to manage for at least a season, I guess it's one to ask me again when we get there in 18 months' time. But for me, like my timeline is I wouldn't consider this season like the end of the world if Arsenal didn't win a trophy, but I would be looking or wanting to win one in the next 18 months. And I would consider that if we didn't win one of the major ones, a Premier League or a Champions League in those 18 months, I would then consider that like, okay, it's not quite the success I'm looking for. So at this stage, I think those timelines align. So let's see what happens in 18 months and when Klopp is available. But also, he's obviously not going to come and manage a Premier League
Yeah,
club.
that's
Like, he's just not going
Bayern
to.
Bayern haven't signed anyone.
Okay, they've not signed Sacha Boey yet. Okay, maybe it's someone else who was looking to sign him. Combs' question, just to wrap up here. So where we said about the decision for Saliba to Walker or moving on like Augusto to Van Heck, I think part of the reasoning was needing the funds to bring Haaland back. So I don't even know if like it's possible to get to even a Guardiola because of the funds. So let us know. But if Guardiola still allows you to fund Haaland, I think he's the player we both liked as the alternative over Van Heck.
But I think Van Heck is okay because he's so cheap and their fixtures are good for such a long time that and if you don't need him or if he's no good, you just throw him on the bench. So I don't mind Van Heck if that's what allows you to get Haaland.
True, but in that situation, maybe I am just a glutton for punishment. You say, but I just get Lamptey at like 3.94 million and just pray he doesn't get injured because when he came on as well, like he came on as a sub and like their fans, sorry, every time he touches the ball, like they just love him. Like he's just great. He's so fun to watch, but it's just like I don't know when he is literally James like as you said. So maybe that's a bit more of a risk. But you know, you're saying you might bench this player anyway every week. So if they're just on your bench anyway, like I've had Lamptey on my bench most of the season, it's not hurt me too badly.
I'd rather have Van Heck because he'll play.
At least you know. Grady says maybe Klopp will be the next England manager after a break. That would be pretty exciting. I don't know if it will happen, but I would love that as England.
England is not going to hire a German.
They're not going to kick. Oh yeah, it's not.
Hire the German to bring it home.
Yeah, that is crazy. Black Tree says Nima looking at Klopp 2025. It sounds like a presidential campaign. So I'll let you know about Klopp 2025 summer candidacy. But yeah, lovely to see you, Gabe. Lovely to see everyone. We're gonna get out of here. I think we've done about 25 minutes Q&A, so nice to be able to spend a bit more time on the questions instead of going through the data and the content. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I should be back next Thursday. I'll announce the timings, but I'm looking at 5:30 or 6 p.m. next Thursday, the 1st of Feb for the Gameweek 23 Matchups show. I think I should probably be around as well. Okay, nice. I was going to say like Craig's hopefully going to join as well. So if you join as well, we'll have 3 of us. So that'd be quite fun. And looking forward to that. But thank you, everyone. Have a great Gameweek 22. Enjoy some pure watches of football in the FA Cup this weekend, starting with the City Spurs game tonight. Should be a very entertaining match, hopefully. And good luck in your wildcard, Gabe, and see you all next game week. Peace.
Peace.
Cheers.